Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Also, that download I was talking about,
Yeah.
it finally finished, but I had constant problems with it.
Oh no.
And it finally actually worked on Friday, actually
Hmm?
Saturday. It finally worked on Saturday. Finally,
Yeah.
on Saturday.
Huh.
And honestly, it was worth the wait. I can tell you
Is
that.
it?
It
I
is
had heard.
so worth the wait.
I had heard something, and I don't know. I heard just a clip, and I didn't know if it was about that or not. But they were talking about the amount of aerial shots and things that they had taken to make the game or something.
Yeah, that game has been
That they,
development. That
but there was one building that they had put the height in wrong, and
yeah,
instead
they
of two, it was
multiple things.
212.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because a lot of people just like a lot of people just like they just mess around with it, and a lot of
Yeah.
times
Yeah.
like the really successful predecessor to FS 2020 was Flight Simulator X Steam Edition, which is still popular even though it was made in 2006. And there are hundreds of add-ons like free and pay.
Yeah.
Some of them cost 3 times more than the game did,
Oh wow.
like $60 for a plane.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but a lot of the times it was definitely worth it. But
Yeah.
I didn't buy it. I had a friend who cracked it.
Uh-huh.
I have a friend who he's kind of a crack stuff, like kind of like, well, he finds a
Good.
lot of crack stuff,
Yeah.
but like seriously, like it is worth it. I've landed in the parking lot of my work.
Oh wow.
One, I've I'm still trying to find my house.
Mm-hmm.
I landed in a field, I believe, across from my house. It could have been somewhere else, but
Oh
I've also
good.
been to Also, I have a friend who lives near I think near Milwaukee. Yeah, he lives near Milwaukee. Actually,
Uh-huh.
no, wait, not Milwaukee, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and he has like official railroad on it stuff that has trackage near Chicago O'Hare.
Yeah.
So I took off for Chicago O'Hare, made a left at the end of the
Yeah.
runway, and there was the main one of the main yards of his railroad, so to say. But
Oh
it's really a
wow.
Canadian Pacific yard, and we just followed the line for like let's say half an hour,
Mm-hmm.
just flying down there.
My
It
goodness.
was yeah, and like I'm still waiting, just like on a couple friends, just so I can. I'm just waiting for the weekend, which
Yeah.
I unfortunately have to work eight eight to four
Oh
Saturday and
wow.
Sunday.
Wow, that's a long day.
That was my one of my first weekends on the job. My
Mm-hmm.
one like on the first week I was hired, like
Yeah.
the week of my initiation. I had the initiation, which was on Monday,
Yeah.
then work Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
But and on Saturday,
Yeah.
here's the weird part: 10 to 7.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's a long day.
yeah. Those are training days.
Yeah.
That entire week.
I
But
was gonna
after
say,
that,
I guess you're trained pretty well, huh?
yeah. But then I got four
That's
days
good.
off. Then I
Yeah.
got 4 days off. So
Well good. When you
and
get
I
that paycheck, that'll be fun.
I mean, like for the first week, I mean, I'll
Mm-hmm.
still pay for that first week, including
Yeah.
the initiation day because I was
Yeah.
still
Oh
technically
yeah.
hired.
Yeah.
So that week plus like in the next few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I get paid $700.
Holy moly.
Yep,
That's awesome.
$9 an hour really does help.
Yeah, it does. That's great. Well, good for
I
you.
guess you didn't mind the hours then.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. It
I didn't mind it
kind
at
of makes
all.
it worth
I mean,
it.
like at first, I'm still trying to adjust to like having
Yeah.
school and
Oh
work.
yeah, it's hard.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to adjust to just school.
Hey,
I mean-
we all take it in different steps.
I mean, there's always a first time for everything. So
That's right. That's right.
and like but like my schedule fluctuates every week, but like
Yeah.
there's a constant thing of me always working on weekends because
Hmm.
school,
Yeah.
and like we close at 10,
Okay.
so but like since I have school and stuff, the person who made the schedule said like you can't go to 10. You have to clock out at
Yeah, you have to
9:45
clock out at
at 9
9. Yep.
9:45, and that's what I've
There's
been doing.
different laws about that.
Yeah, but, yeah, because, and also like there's different equipment I can't use because I'm not 18 yet, like
Right.
the cardboard baler
Mm-hmm.
and the electric pallet jack.
Yeah.
The electric
cool.
pallet jack, I mean, I don't feel like using it right now.
Yeah.
I don't really have any use for it at the moment.
Right.
Like they mainly use it for bringing stuff out of trucks.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 loading bays,
Yeah.
and the thing is, like I'm not a big fan of working afternoon shifts.
Yeah.
Main reason is because one, I have to take the trash out, and that's about.
If it's hot and then it's stinky.
I mean, the thing is, we have 6 trash.
Oh wow.
So here's the places I have to get the trash. So I do around like 8. I don't have to do it around. I don't have to do it at a specific time.
Mm-hmm.
I just do just because I can get my head just like
Yeah.
I'm going to do that this time.
Just get it done.
Here's the things I have to do. Get the places.
Mm-hmm.
Break room, stock, like the large area with the coolers, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been at the Winn-Dixie down on Morgan Road?
I have not.
Okay. Well, like that's the place where I work. It's
Yeah.
near that. It's across the highway. It's the other side of the highway from that big CVS
Yeah.
distribution center.
I know where it is. I've just never been there.
Yeah, but like it's like it's a place where we have the coolers and freezers
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So if they get the break room, this like the singular trash can in the stock room.
Yeah.
Both bathrooms, the 3 main trash cans up front, and then the 3 that are like by the place where we put the buggies, like where people put the buggies.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it gets kind of those trash cans that are we have for the ones close to the buggies. We have 1 covered one
Mm-hmm.
and 2 uncovered ones.
Okay.
And I think you know what I mean by
Yeah.
it gets a little interesting when it rains.
I bet so.
Surprisingly, the last few times I have had to do it
Yeah.
hasn't been that wet, and even if it rained that day,
Yeah.
and then I have to get the cash registers, like some place where you put another place up front, and then the office.
Okay. Okay.
The office
Well,
quite.
good deal. Good deal.
Yeah, I've been in almost every single place in that store. So
Wow.
if I were to
That's
build it like a
awesome.
replica of in Minecraft, I can like, okay,
Yeah.
this is here.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's neat. That is
And also
neat.
like,
It's always fun getting a job and learning all the ins and outs and figuring out what to do.
when I was starting out, I was like, when I get home, I would be sore as heck.
Yeah.
But now I've gotten used to it.
Yep. Well, good.
It also
Very
helps in my
good.
skip schedule.
Yeah. I was hanging on, waiting a minute to see if Melody was going to join us, but I haven't. Let me check and make sure I haven't gotten an email from her or anything. Oops, she says she can't find the Zoom link. Let's see.
I mean, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same one. She just probably can't find it in her email. So let me go to my sent mail. And it will be ACT Zoom. And it will be,
It was sent on the 19th, I presume. Yeah, for the new one. Guess that's the last one I remember. The one I'm using.
What's the recording? ACT. Let's see. Let me just go in here real quick. Send an invitation to her. Okay. What we're going to be doing today is just kind of talking through in the beginning our homework was to do to go through our let's see, what is her well, go back to her. email address. Okay. There we go. All right. We're going to kind of talk through a little bit about your homework, which was just to go through your missed items from your practice test and kind of look at what you missed and why you missed it, and see just kind of, and I'm not going to ask you to, you know, tell what you missed or why you missed it, but the main thing I want to find out is, were you able to figure out a consistent pattern? Were you able to see that there were certain things that you missed more than not? Were you, as far as like when you were doing the practice, how often you guessed? And when you guessed on items, did you find that you got them right or not? And just kind of did going through this help you to kind of see where possibly to focus on your work? Hey, Mel. We are just talking about, we're just getting ready to start talking about the homework where we talked about just looking at your missed items from the English practice test and kind of going through and seeing if you found a consistent pattern and things that you were missing, or was it something all along? Did you find that you had a timing issue? Was it, you know, kind of what did you see was your biggest things that you found by kind of looking through your missed items? Anybody have any aha moments?
Nope.
Everybody good? Everybody get a chance to go through it? If you didn't, you know, one of the things that we'll be doing this week is we're going to be doing another series of practice. What we'll do is setting up the 9-minute practice tests to where you take practice test 2. Take each of the 5 sections in 9-minute increments. So set your timer for 9 minutes and just do one section at a time. It could be all on different days. It doesn't have to be on the same day. You may want to knock it all out in one sitting and get it done at one time. That is totally up to you. But what I do want you to do is I want you to review the strategies. So if we look back at, or if we talk, actually, let me pull up my iPad and link up and go back to those pages real quick. Where'd it go? Screen. Zoom. All right, so actually I'm going to back up for a minute. And we had English for 819. That was last week. Okay, so if you go back to, let me find what page it was on. I think it was toward the end. Before you do these next practice tests, look back at the types of questions, kind of refresh your memory on what those types of questions are going to be. Thinking about, you know, what were the things we talked about possibly choosing answer choices. And then skip on down. Oh no. Here we go. With the reading strategies. This is number 12 on page 7 of last week's papers. And it just says experiment with passage reading strategies. Method 1, going paragraph by paragraph. And this is where you read a paragraph. When you get to the end of that paragraph, answer questions that are pertaining to that paragraph. Read the next paragraph, answer questions about that paragraph, and just take it like that. That is one method, okay? The method 2 was the answer as you go. So this is where you start reading the passage, and as soon as you get to an underlined part or a numbered part and you know you've got a question, finish reading the sentence and then answer that question and then keep going, okay? Method 3 is sentence by sentence. This is where you're only reading the sentences that include a question. Now, this method, while it is more time efficient, it's the fastest method for getting through the test, but the likelihood of making errors is going to be higher because you're missing the whole entire context of the passage. If you're not reading all of the passage, you're not necessarily getting a feel for the author's tone and mood and the thoughts and everything presented in a logical manner, stuff like that. So, so sentence by sentence, I do not recommend unless you're running out of time and you've just got to get answers down, okay? Method 4 is going to be you skim first and then you use sentence by sentence. So basically it just says you kind of skim the entire passage and then you use your sentence by sentence method to answer the question. So basically and this depends on how good of a reader you are. If you're a good skimmer, this would be a great method. If you are not a good skimmer, forget it. Don't waste your time going through the passage and then going sentence by sentence. It's going to be too much. But notice that I put at the bottom, the paragraph by paragraph method is recommended to start off with. But once you find which method you prefer, use that method while you're practicing and testing, okay? So what I want you to do, so we'll go ahead and know that this week you're going to be doing practice test 2. And actually, really, it doesn't even matter what practice test it has to be, okay? You can pick whichever one you want to do in your red book, okay? We've already done 1, so you can pick, 2, 3, 4. My book has 5 in there, so you can pick whichever passage or whichever test you want to do. That'll be just fine. If you are feeling mighty and bold and brave and you want to do more than 1 practice test, then that is fantastic. The more practice you get, the better, okay? And this is the case with anything, whether it's a sport or an activity or a video game or no matter whatever it is, drawing, it's the kind of thing where the more you practice, the better you get at it because you're more familiar with it. You just get better at it. And so it's the same way. The last thing that, what I think about is fun is going, hey, I'm going to do extra practice on my ACT. That doesn't sound fun and exciting to me. But again, it all goes back to your motivations. What are you looking to achieve? What are your goals? That kind of stuff. So everybody's going to kind of have a different mindset approaching this. Again, it's not something that anybody can kind of stand over you and go, you're going to do this. I mean, I guess your parents could if they wanted to, but more than likely that's not going to be the case. They're probably kind of leaving this on you. Hey, this is on you. I know, like, one of the things I've told my daughter, she is a junior, and so she's getting ready to take, she's going to take the test in October cold. She's not going to do anything to prepare for it. She's just going to take it and just, get a feel for it, know what it's like, go through that stress and experience. And then we're going to start practicing for it for the December test. And then, but her goal, she has identified a school in Georgia that she wants to go to that is very expensive. And so I have told her that is great and wonderful. She wants to go to that school, but she's got to get some academic money. So her motivation is to get a score high enough to go to the school that she wants to go to. So, it may be that you're just wanting, you're not necessarily needing academic money. It could be that you're not necessarily wanting to go out of state. Again, out of state schools carry out of state tuition. So out of state's more expensive than in state. So there's all kinds of factors that play into it. You may be just looking to see, I just want to get whatever score I need to get in. That was the way my husband and I were when we were, going through school. It was just kind of what's the minimum I got to get in. We didn't think twice about scholarships, which probably our parents really wish we had, but we didn't. It was just different then. So it just, it depends on what you're looking to do. So, but again, the more you practice, the better you're going to get with it and the more competent and confident you're going to get with the test. So anyway, so this upcoming week, I want you to do a practice test, 5 9-minute sessions, and practice with these different methods and see which one you think you like the best. What do you feel more comfortable with? And again, it's the kind of thing where do that extra time thing. If you get to 9 minutes and you're not finished, then mark your test where you got to, and then keep going, and then record what your extra time was. Okay, that way you can get what your real score is versus your extra time score, and we can keep working with that. Okay, now that doesn't mean take your time and don't even worry about the time. Try to get as much done as you can in 9 minutes. Okay, because if you're not under that time pressure, then when it comes time for the real thing, you're not going to be under that pressure, and you're not going to be prepared for it. Okay, because you don't get extra time at the ACT. They don't go, oh, mark your place and let's keep going. Time is time. Put your pencils down, you're done. Okay, they give you a 5-minute warning, so then at 5 minutes, hopefully you've been keeping up with your time. And I think I mentioned when we talked about kind of overview of day one, it is a good idea to wear a watch, and it's got to be just a plain old simple watch. It cannot be an Apple Watch. It cannot be any kind of programmable watch. It cannot be a watch that makes noise. It's got to be a quiet, just regular old watch. You have to wear it on your wrist the whole time. I don't think they'll even let you take it off and lay it on your table to look at it. The problem is, you know, we would hope that all the testing facilities would have a nice big clock on the wall that was accurate, but we can't guarantee that. So the only way that you are really able to keep up with your time is with a watch. They won't let you have your phone. You can't have any kind of thing like that. So a watch is going to be the only way that you can keep up with your time. Okay, so maybe somebody around the house, maybe you have an old watch that you could just pull out for the day, make sure it's got a battery, you know, wound up, whatever it is. But take a watch so you can keep up with your time. And then that way, if you know, hey, my pacing is 9 minutes, then when you have your start time, write your start time at the top of your paper and know that, hey, if we started at 10:40, then by passage 1, I need to be done by 10:49. Okay? So when you're finishing passage 1, you can glance at your watch and go, ooh, I've got extra time. I'm doing good. Or, ooh, I took too much time. I got to move. Okay. So pacing and keeping up with your time is going to be important, and that's going to help you as you go through these 9-minute practice tests. So I want you to do the 9-minute practice. The next thing I want you to do is go ahead and self-score it. Okay. So you know that in your red book, after the practice test, comes the place where it gives all the correct answers. Okay, so you'll do your practice test. I want you to flip to where the answers are, self-score it, and I want you to come up with your own raw score. Okay, so we're practicing 9-minute test and we're self-scoring. Okay, and then again, I want you to go through your mistakes. I want you to look at those and see what your mistakes are. Okay, so that's going to be our plan for next week. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up all of our English and moving on to math. Okay, so so I want to make sure that we've had a little bit more practice, and we'll go through some different examples and things like that. But that'll be what our homework is for next week. We'll go over all this again before we wrap up today. But anyway, if you got the papers, I'm so sorry. I have every intention of having things sent to y'all earlier, and then my days end up falling apart. And I will tell y'all that my geometry class, I was a little scattered and frazzled. Megan knows that this summer I had shoulder surgery, and so I've been going to therapy and all this good stuff. Well, I've still been having trouble with some range of motion, so I had to go back to the doctor yesterday, and I got a shot at each shoulder, which is great because my movement is a little bit better today. That's fantastic. But nobody told me that, hey, if you have 2 steroid shots in one day, you are not going to sleep at night. So last night I finished up typing ACT stuff at about 1:30. So I got that finished up, and I was like, okay, I can go to bed. So I went to bed, and I laid there until 5:30, and I laid there, and then I finally kind of dozed off a little bit, and then I woke up at 6, and I dozed off again, and I woke up at 6:30. So I'm operating on about an hour of sleep from last night. So if I kind of go off the rails, I mean, I know I typically would go off the rails as it is, but if I do really bad today, I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm really trying. So anyway, we'll survive. So like I said, I'm so sorry that I did not get these sent to y'all yesterday, but hopefully you've had a chance to print them out. If not, just follow along with the screen and then print them today. Okay. So today we're going on to conventions of standard English. We're looking at sentence structure, formation, and usage, okay? A lot of these things are probably going to be things that you go, ooh, I know that. I know that. We started doing that in like 5th grade English or 4th grade even, you know. All your grammar classes, hopefully all these skills are going to come back to you and you're going to go, yeah, I know that. But when we get to something that you're not sure about, that's where you star it, you exit, you highlight it, you do what you want to do to say, hey, this is something I need to review. Okay, I don't remember this, or maybe you were never taught it. There could be some things that you go, I have never heard of that in my life. Who knows? Okay. First one, sentence structure. It says sentence structure is the grammatical arrangement of words and phrases and sentences. Okay. It is important that a sentence be arranged so the idea is expressed completely and clearly. The ACT will test your ability to recognize and correct errors involving the following: run-on sentence, sentence fragments, misplaced modifiers, probably something that you'll go, huh? But then when we talk about it, you go, oh yeah, I remember talking about that. And then parallelism, again, something that you're probably going, parallelism, I don't remember doing that. We'll talk about it. Run-on sentences. We know run-on sentences are sentences that are, you know, more than one main idea and does not have proper connectors or punctuation. Okay, run-on sentences, it just keeps going and you know that it's not making sense. So this says the ACT requires you to recognize run-on sentences as well as avoid creating run-on sentences. So it may be that they actually give you as an answer option a run-on sentence. Okay, so what they may do is look and see, okay, if we gave this as a possible answer option, are you going to choose the run-on sentence versus the correct? The following are examples of run-on sentences along with the suggested corrections. So the first one, Jill is an actress. She often appears in major network television shows. Okay, that's a run-on sentence because I have two complete thoughts. One of the things that I always want to do is stop and say, could I break this into two separate sentences? And so I can. Jill is an actress. I could say Jill is an actress, period. She often appears in major network television shows. I could break it apart by using a period. They have put a clause in here and said Jill is an actress who often appears in major television or major network television shows. You could say Jill is an actress, comma, and she often appears in major network television shows. We're going to be talking about different possible ways to correct run-ons. The next one, my nephew loves to play football. You can find him on the practice field almost every day. They broke this one apart by using a period. My nephew loves to play football, period. You can find him on the practice field almost every day. Usually if your thoughts are similar but not directly related, breaking them into two sentences is going to be helpful by putting that period there. Run-on sentences are often created by substituting a comma for a semicolon or a period. This is called a comma splice. So sometimes people will just put a comma there and think, oh, well, this separates it, we're good. Because a lot of times we've been taught that, hey, a comma means to pause. So if I read it and I pause there, then it should be good. So the example they gave us here is, yesterday my mother prepared my favorite dinner, comma, she even baked a cake. Okay, not a correct sentence. This is a run-on. Now, one of the things you could do is, yesterday my mother prepared my favorite dinner. You could put a semicolon there. Semicolon acts as a period. Okay, it's breaking it into two complete thoughts, except for the only difference with a semicolon is after the semicolon, the letter after it is lowercase. After a period, it's capitalized. Okay, so that's the only difference. I can use a semicolon and a period interchangeably in these sentences. The only difference is that one's going to have a capital letter after and the other one will have a semicolon. You could also say, yesterday my mother prepared my favorite dinner, comma, and she even baked a cake. So you could, where that comma is, you could put in and you fixed it. Okay. Then the next one says, history is my favorite subject in school, comma, I always get the highest grade. Again, we can break this into two separate statements. History is my favorite subject in school, period. I always get the highest grade. Or I could have history as my favorite subject in school, comma, and I always get the highest grade. So there's different options to be able to do that. So those are our run-on sentences and comma splices. Now we're going to talk about sentence fragments. Okay, so a fragment is going to be a dependent clause which must function as part of a complete sentence and cannot stand alone. Fragments often lack a subject or a verb with tense. Sentence fragments are incorrectly punctuated as if they were complete sentences. The following are examples of sentence fragments along with suggested corrections. The first one, a fragment. My car is difficult to start in the winter. That is a complete sentence. The next one, because of the cold weather, is not a complete sentence. Okay? Because of the cold weather, what? All right? Because of the cold weather, my car is difficult to start in the winter. Okay? So I can switch those around and make because of the cold weather a clause that comes at the beginning and change it around, or I could put my car is difficult to start in the winter because of the cold weather as one complete sentence. Okay, so I could just leave out the period, make my because lowercase and put it as one sentence, or I can make that phrase I can flip it to the beginning and say because of the cold weather, comma, my car is difficult to start in the winter. Next sentence fragment. Michigan State offers a variety of courses. That is a complete statement. The next one, such as psychology, biology, physics, and music. Not a complete statement. Okay? Such as psychology, biology, physics, and music is just telling those courses, but it doesn't tell what that is a dependent clause. It needs something else with it. So to correct that, all you have to do is change your period to a comma. Such becomes lowercase. Michigan State offers a variety of courses, comma, such as psychology, biology, physics, and music. All right, misplaced modifiers. Modifiers are words, phrases, or clauses that provide description in sentences. Typically, a modifier is placed near the word or phrase that it modifies. A misplaced modifier creates confusion because it appears to modify some word or phrase other than the word or phrase it was intended to modify. So this is probably going to be a place where you're going to want to highlight a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to put a misplaced modifier creates confusion. Whoop, go away. Because it appears to modify some word or phrase it was intended other than the one it was intended to modify. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at that. Okay. So this first example says Josh had trouble deciding which college to attend at first. Okay. So when we say things like that, it often sounds right. He was having trouble to decide what college he wanted to attend at first. But are you saying that at first, is he planning on going to more than one college? So which one is his first college he wants to go to? So, or are we saying that in the beginning, he was having trouble deciding? So what we have to do is we have to look at what does at first modify, okay? Is at first talking about the college, or are we talking about at first Josh had trouble? So that's what we have to think about. And so we can see where that at first, that misplaced modifier needs to go with Josh, because Josh is the one having trouble. He's not trying to figure out which college came first. The next one, the young girl was walking her dog in a raincoat. Well, was her dog wearing a raincoat? Okay, is the raincoat talking about the dog, or is the raincoat talking about the girl? Okay, so again, we've got to think about the young girl in a raincoat was walking her dog. So modifiers, we want to be sure that our modifier either precedes, means comes before what it's modifying, or it comes directly after. We want to make sure that those are located close to each other in the sentence, okay? Whatever the modifier goes with needs to be close to what it's modifying in the sentence. And I'm going to be giving y'all some more detailed things about modifiers and things in our wrap up on next week. I just wanted to introduce them to you this week, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper next week. All right, parallelism. Parallelism or parallel construction enables you to show order and clarity in a sentence or a paragraph by putting grammatical elements that have the same function in the same form. For example, when two adjectives modify the same noun, the adjectives should have similar forms. When providing a list, each element of the list should have the same form. Also, when the first half of the sentence has a certain structure, the second half should maintain that structure. So we've got some examples of faulty parallel construction. Okay, a lot of times when it's dealing with a verb, it's real easy to see because we're talking about past tense and present tense and future tense and stuff like that. So it says Amy enjoyed running and to ride horses. Okay, we can see that, and we know that running and to ride, okay, those are not parallel. So you would have to make sure that if you have running with an ing, you want riding to have ing. Okay, you want them to be parallel. You want them to be similar. So Amy enjoyed running and horseback riding. Or you could say and riding horses. It doesn't matter. But you cannot say to ride when you've got running. Faulty parallel construction. Our field trip included a visit to the art museum, talking to a local artist, and a workshop on oil painting techniques. Again, we have got different things. We have visit, talking, and a workshop. Okay, so again, we want to make sure that as we have those things listed out, usually the easiest is just going with ing. Okay, so our trip to our field trip included visiting the art museum, talking to a local artist, and attending a workshop. We want to make sure that all those verbs are using the same form. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next, is look at verb and verb phrases with parallelism. Okay, it says verbs are often easy to recognize in sentences because they usually describe action. Verb phrases include the main verb as well as helping verbs such as is, are, was, were, must, shall, will, should, could, can, could, may, and might. It could have been that when you were in elementary school, you had to memorize those lists and know that those were verb phrases, okay? Or that those were helping verbs. ACT does not care that you know that those are helping verbs. They just want to know that do you know how to use them, okay? So when we talk about verbs in their infinitive form, this is where you have the word to followed by the simple form. So just like to ride a minute ago in that sentence, when it said to ride, that's an infinitive form of the verb. And so that's why we can't use the verb with ing with an infinitive. They are not parallel. The next type of verb is a gerund, and a gerund is derived from a verb but functions as a noun. Okay, this is the one that ends with ing. Walking on the moon was Neil Armstrong's most famous achievement. Walking is the subject, but it is derived from the verb to walk. Okay, so in that sentence, walking on the moon was Armstrong's famous achievement. So it's used as a noun in this sentence, walking, but yet it comes from the verb to walk. So that's what a gerund is. Linking verbs describes states of being and connect adjectives with the subject of the sentence that they modify. The most common linking verb is to be, and other common linking verbs are and is. We are going to the store. She is moving next week. We want to be at home. So a lot of those, thinking about those linking verbs. Examples of states of being or linking verbs: appear, become, feel, remain, stay, seem, smell, sound, taste, and turn. Okay, if we said I feel bad, I want to stay home, these are other types of linking verbs that are considered, they're more a state of being. Okay, a lot of times when I think of linking verb, I'm thinking about to be, are, and is. But when I talk about my state of being, it's how you're acting, feeling, you're being. Okay, indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns act as the subject of a sentence but do not refer to any particular person, place, or thing and can be difficult to identify. Let me look at my time. It is 10:59. Let's see, we take a break at 11:10, right? So we've got about 10 minutes before break. Typical indefinite pronouns: all, another, any, anybody, anyone, anything, each, enough, everybody or everyone, everything, less, little, few, much, many, nobody, none, no one, nothing, one, other, several, some, somebody, someone. An indefinite pronoun is singular, so it should have a singular verb in the sentence. If the indefinite pronoun is plural, it should have a plural verb. So I've given an example of a singular and a plural. I have the word each, so each of the students is prepared for the ACT. What I can do is I can pull out my subject and my verb. I can pull out that pronoun, each is. I know I don't say each are, or I don't say some is. Okay, so the next one is our plural form, where it says some of the students are prepared for the ACT. I wouldn't say some is, because some is plural, is a singular verb. Okay, so we always want to make sure as we're reading sentences, are our pronouns and verbs, are they parallel? Are they matching? Are they used in the same form? Here's a strategy for checking to add, is the indefinite pronoun matching the verb, or is there pronoun verb agreement? And again, like I said, you can leave that clause afterward and just say each is, some are. And then that way you can it'll help you by just eliminating that clause that comes after it to make sure that they are in agreement. Collective nouns. Collective nouns refer to groups of people, animals, or things being treated as a singular unit. Okay, so if we said the class, class would be a singular word, but it is representing a group of people, but we treat it as a singular noun. Here are some examples: army, family, company, audience, flock, band, group, society, herd, committee, panel, class, staff, faculty, department, team, school, public. These are just examples. This is not an extensive list. There could be a zillion and 5 more, okay? Just know that these are just some examples to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So collective nouns can be either singular or plural depending on the context. So you've got to look at the context of the sentence to determine, is it being used as singular or plural? When the group that makes up collective nouns are doing things in unison, if everybody's doing the same thing at the same place at the same time, it is singular, okay? But if the members are acting as individuals, then it's going to be plural. So if you've got a group of people, so like, you know, if you were talking about the class, but everybody's doing different things, they're not all doing the exact same thing, then class would be plural, okay? So it says ACT usually only tests collective nouns in the singular form, but just in case, I wanted you to know about the plural form. Singular, each afternoon, the team follows its coach out to the field. Team is singular, follows is singular, its is singular. You wouldn't say each afternoon the team follow its coach, okay? You would have to say team follows its coach. You wouldn't say teams follows. You wouldn't have, you know, each afternoon the teams follows its coach. Teams and follows don't match. Here's a plural example. The family are each doing their chores. Family, we have that talking about one group, but they're all doing something different. So in this situation, we use the plural form for are. We wouldn't say the family is each doing their chores, because we're saying that they're all doing different things. They're operating in independent fashion or as individuals. So family is plural, are doing is plural, and there is plural. Any questions about that? All right, relative clauses. A relative clause, also called an adjective clause, begins with a relative pronoun and are often used as incorrect answers to questions to test whether or not you know what a complete sentence is. So sometimes they will use these just to see, and they'll even give them as a possible answer choice, just to see, do you know what a complete sentence is? This is because they tend to make the verb function as an adjective to describe the noun immediately before the relative pronoun. Relative clauses are often used to provide additional information such as timing or location. So what I've done here is I've put a chart, and it says relative pronouns are associated as follows with their preceding nouns. So you can see that when we have a preceding pronoun and we're describing a person, the relative pronoun that we're going to use in describing that person is going to either be who or whom. Who is usually if you know exactly who it is. Whom is when it's an unknown individual. Okay, so that's why, like, when you write a letter and it says to whom it may concern, you don't know who you're writing to. Okay, so that's why you use the word whom. And that and whose. So some examples: do you know the girl who is in your class? Who is describing the girl. Can I have the pencil that I loaned you? That is describing the pencil. An orphan is a child whose parents are gone. Whose is describing the child. Okay, the word whose, W-H-O-S-E, is a pronoun. Okay, whose, meaning W-H-O apostrophe S, is a contraction meaning who is. You will see that, and we'll talk about it, I think, in a minute, about looking at the different types of forms and understanding that whose and whose, they're read, they sound the same, but you've got to understand that whose is going to be used as a pronoun or sometimes as an adjective, but W-H-O apostrophe S is a contraction. When we're talking about a thing, the relative pronoun you're going to use is either which or that, and the word whose. And what we'll talk about, we'll look at that in just a minute. Pizza, which is delicious, is my favorite food. Which is describing the pizza. The oak tree, the oak is a tree that produces acorns. That describes the tree. This is a dog whose hair must be combed. Whose describes the dog. So that's kind of showing possession there about whose. Okay. And I put note 1, the relative pronoun whose is used in place of the possessive pronoun. It must be followed by a noun. So the example is, there's a boy in grade 8 whose father is a professional tennis player. Okay, you can break that into 2 separate sentences that says there is a boy in grade 8, his father is a professional tennis player. So what you're looking at is, by breaking it apart, are you making sure that that word whose is associated with the preceding noun, whose father? We're referring to the father. Okay. Note 2, the relative pronouns where and when are used with place and time. Example, Cornerstone is a cooperative where children who are homeschooled can take classes. Where is telling Cornerstone. 2020 has been the year when all kinds of crazy things happen. When is describing 2020. Okay, so we're looking at what things that they are providing additional information about. Okay. Some relative clauses are not used to define or identify the preceding noun, but just to give extra information. So we've just looked at relative clauses that can be used to provide extra information. Now we're learning that these can also just be used to give extra information. These are ones that actually can be left out. If it's an extra information clause, then you can test out your sentence and see, can it even be left out completely, and does your sentence still make a complete thought? So the first one says, the heavy rain, which was unusual for the time of year, destroyed most of the plants in my garden. Okay, we could leave out that clause in the middle and say, the heavy rain destroyed most of the plants in my garden. All right. By putting in the clause, which was unusual for the time of year, is just adding extra information. Einstein, who was born in Germany, is famous for his theory of relativity. Again, we could just say Einstein is famous for his theory of relativity, but when I have who was born in Germany, I'm just giving more information. The boy whose parents both work as teachers at the school got suspended. The boy got suspended is a complete thought, but whose parents both work at the schools are going to be a relative clause. My mother's company, which makes pillows, is moving soon to another town. In the summer, I'm going to visit Italy, where my brother lives. So you can see where these things can come in the middle of the sentence, or it can come at the end of the sentence. But notice that when I'm using which and who and whose, everything is offset by commas. Okay, so when you've got these phrases that we're using, notice before the word which or who or whose or where, I've got a comma. If it's in the middle of my sentence, I'm going to have a comma at the end of the phrase that separates it from the rest of your sentence. If it comes at the end of the sentence, then you just have your comma before your relative pronoun, and then it ends with a period or whatever punctuation mark. All right, so a lot of times we get which and who confused. And this was the part that I just talked about, how when we use which and who, we want to use those commas to offset them. Sorry. Relative clauses which and who must be separated off by commas because they provide defining properties of the nouns they modify. If it comes at the end, you just put your comma and then your punctuation. Okay. So it says there are two common occasions. It says which or who rarely appears at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, so we talked about in the middle of the sentence and at the end, but it's very rare that they begin. They start at the beginning. It says there are two common occasions, particularly in spoken English, when the relative pronoun is omitted. So if we look at this, it says when the pronoun is the subject, is the object of the relative clause. Hey, that was a, we got a fragment there. So what I need to do is when the pronoun is the object of the relative clause, the relative pronoun can be omitted. Okay. In the following sentences, the pronoun that can be left out is enclosed in parentheses. So you could say, do you know the girl who or whom he's talking to? You could use that, or you could totally leave that out. Do you know the girl he's talking to? Because we're talking about the girl. Where is the pencil which I gave you yesterday? You could leave out which. Where's the pencil I gave you yesterday? I haven't read any of the books that I got for Christmas. That a lot of times, and I've even noticed that when I'm typing, if you're typing in Word, I've noticed that a lot of times it will recommend that you leave out that, okay? Because I'm real big, or I'm real, like a lot of times I'll write, you know, that, da, 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 and it'll come up as like a little two blue lines underneath it saying, you know, leave it out. It's just for a more concise, cleaner version. I didn't like the girl that you brought to the party. Again, that could be left out. And did you find the money which you lost? Did you find the money you lost? So sometimes if the pronoun is the object of the relative clause, you can just leave it out. Says you cannot omit the relative pronoun, A, if it starts a non-defining relative clause, or B, if the subject of a defining or if it's the subject of the defining relative clause. So it says, for example, who is necessary in the following sentences? What's the name of the girl who won the tennis tournament? So if you just said who won the tennis tournament, you're leaving out some specific information that the person is wanting this answer to. 2 says when the relative clause contains a present or past participle and the auxiliary verb to be. So who's that man who is standing by the gate? In this situation, we can leave out this auxiliary. Okay, who is the man standing by the gate? The family that is living in the house next door comes from Slovenia. We can leave that, the family living next door or in the next house. She was wearing a dress which was covered in blue flowers. She was wearing a dress covered in blue flowers. Most of the parents who were invited to the conference did not come. Most of the parents invited to the conference didn't come. Anyone who is that is caught writing on the walls will be expelled from school. So again, that can be left out. So basically, dealing with these relative pronouns, you're going to be looking at are they modifying in the correct format? And are they things that can be left out or not? Is it necessary information that needs to be there? Which versus that. I think a lot of times we get confused on when do we need to use which and when do we need to use that. And so it says you may be asked to choose between which and that on the test. Here are the guidelines for choosing between the two. Use which for clauses that define all members of the noun. You know what? I've totally run over our break, haven't I? Let's take a 5-minute break. Sorry, take a break. Y'all gotta remind me. I'll just keep on going. Okay, it's 11:14, so we'll take 5. Okie dokie. We're just getting ready to talk about which versus that and trying to decide which one to go with. So it says you may be asked to choose between which and that. Use which for clauses that defines all members of the noun that comes before it and offer information that is incidental and could be left out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight a couple of things. It defines all members of the noun that comes before it. So we know that if there's a noun that comes before it, which, and it offers information that could be left out. So look at this example. Jeans, which are pants made of denim or other cotton fabric, are my favorite types of pants to wear. Again, it is defining the members of the noun that comes before it. Which are pants is describing jeans, okay? We could leave that whole thing out and you still get the gist of the sentence. Jeans are my favorite type of pants to wear, okay? So look for those two things. Can it be left out and still get the gist of the sentence? And is it defining or is it following a noun that is talking about multiple things, okay? So then if you look at the next one, it says jeans, which are pants made of denim or other cotton fabric. Oops, sorry, that was my example I just did. You use that for clauses that gives information that is essential to the sentence. So that is going to be essential, which is not essential. Since these clauses are essential, the sentence does not convey the same information if it is left out. So if we look at dogs that are cute and well-behaved are more likely to be adopted from a shelter. So if we left out that are cute and well-behaved, and we just have dogs are more likely to be adopted from a shelter, it's a complete sentence, but it's not conveying the same message as the clause does with, as the sentence does with the clause. That makes sense? Whereas earlier when we left out the part about jeans, I still got the gist that jeans are my favorite pants to wear, okay? But if we leave out the fact that dogs are cute and well-behaved, then that kind of messes up the gist of the sentence, okay? So that kind of helps you when you know which and that. That is essential, which is not essential, and it could be left out. It just is providing extra information. All right. I've got a little more about parallel structure that I want to go into now. And so this is still dealing with our sentence structure and usage, and a little more about parallel structure. Parallel structure provides flow in a sentence. It keeps your writing balanced and makes it easier to read. It also shows that ideas are of equal importance. Errors in parallel structure, we need to mark that out. Errors in parallel structure can make your writing sound strange to listeners. We have discussed how parallelism relates to verbs and sentences, but parallelism also applies to other grammatical structures used within one or more sentences. Parallelism is involved when comparing like things with like things. This means that when making comparisons, paintings should be compared with other paintings. Painters should be compared with painters. We don't compare paintings with painters. We want to make sure that we're comparing like things with like things. So it says comparisons of people, places, and things must be logical. The phrases, whoops, let me highlight. The phrases that of and those of can be used to correct illogical comparisons without being redundant. One of the things that we want to be careful of here is redundancy. So you can see where our incorrect sentence is, my test scores were higher than the valedictorian. Well, we're not saying that your scores are higher than the valedictorian. We're not comparing the height of the valedictorian to your scores. We're comparing your test scores to the valedictorian scores, okay? So we've got to make sure that these are parallel items, that we're comparing like things to like things. So it says that your test scores are not being compared to the valedictorian, but the test scores of the valedictorian. So if you said my test scores were higher than the test scores of the valedictorian, then that's redundant, because I said my test scores were higher than the test scores. So we're kind of redundant here. So the way that I can change that is to use that of. My test scores were higher than that of the valedictorian. And then that of is referring back to our test scores. Another incorrect, today's students are much more skilled in electronic learning than 5 years ago. So today's students are much more skilled in electronic learning than 5 years ago. So then 5 years ago, what? Okay, we know what we're trying to say, but grammatically, this is not correct. We need to be comparing 5 years ago to the learning of 5 years ago. So the correct way to say that is the students of today are much more skilled in electronic learning than those of 5 years ago. Those of replaces the reuse of the students of, so it has parallel structure and is not redundant. So that's what we want to be careful of. We want to make sure that we are comparing like things to like things, but we don't want to be redundant. We don't want to have to say the same thing to make sure we know that I'm comparing these two things. So I can use those of and that of in place of those. Proper use of parallel structure. Writers use parallel structure in the words and phrases in their sentences. The grammatical form can be used with a variety of structures, including infinitives, words, clauses, and lists. So here's parallel structure should be used when you connect clauses within a coordinating conjunction, such as for, and, nor, or, but, so, or yet. Some examples of these include, correct, every morning we make our bed, eat breakfast, and feed the dog, okay? So let's take a look at that. The incorrect way of saying that, this one flip-flopped. Every morning we make our bed, eating breakfast, and feed the dog. Those do not match, okay? Because we have make our bed, eat breakfast. Whoops, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. On the incorrect one, we have make our bed, eating breakfast. That eating throws it off, and feed the dog. So I can see that eating is going to be my problem, so I have to change that with eat, okay? My incorrect version of the next one is I will not sing a song nor dance, okay? Are you not gonna sing a dance? All right, so that's the way it's written right now is I will not sing a song nor dance. I will not sing a dance either. But since we're talking about two different things, I will not sing a song nor will I dance, okay? And I think a lot of these things, as we're talking about them right now in isolation, it's kind of hard to follow, but when you actually see them in the test questions, I think it's going to be so much easier to go, oh, so that's why it's going to be helpful for you to do your practice test after we've gone through these things. You're going to kind of see some things, you're going to go, oh, that's what it was. Okay, in addition to coordinating conjunctions, parallel structure is also used with correlative conjunctions such as either or, neither nor, not only and but also. So you can see here, the incorrect is they argued not only about the article, but they argued also about the review, okay? That's a whole lot of wordiness, okay? And so they argued not only about the article, but also about the review. We don't want to have but they argued. Or let's see, we want to have but you don't have to say but they argued again. Incorrect, either she likes to see him or doesn't like seeing him. Okay, so again, doesn't like seeing, we've got seeing here and to see here. That is not parallel. We've got to keep it in one form. So either she likes to see him or she doesn't like to see him. Or you could use it as either she likes seeing him or she doesn't like seeing him. Okay, the main thing is making sure. And one thing about ACT English questions are not going to be the most flowery, extensive, scholarly sounding answers. They are looking for simplicity and conciseness, okay? So it's going to be real tempting to go, ooh, that one sounds real fancy. It sounds real smart. Don't be tricked by that, okay? They're looking for you to be able to leave things out if they can be left out. Make it as concise and simple as possible, okay? It says parallel structures should be used with infinitives. Some examples of parallel structures with infinitives are incorrect, as Ashley likes to ski, to swim, and jump ropes. Okay, so to ski, to swim, and jump ropes. Okay, well, first of all, ropes has an S in it, and jump, we've got infinitives to ski and to swim, so we have to have to jump rope to make it parallel. Infinitive, remember, is where I have to before the verb. Okay, so to ski, to swim, to jump rope is our correct form. Incorrect, she likes dancing and to sing songs. Okay, so again, we have dancing with the ing and to sing. These do not go together. We've got to make sure that we have parallel structure. So she likes to sing and to sing songs, or you could say she likes dancing and singing. It doesn't matter which one you change it to, they're both correct. And I think that's another thing to mention on here about English. So like when you take the math test, there's a right or wrong answer, okay? There is no other possibilities. We've just talked about in a lot of these examples, other possible ways that you could have corrected it correctly, okay? So there's all kinds of, in English, we have multiple ways to make things grammatically correct. But on ACT, they're only going to pick one of those forms, one of those ways to make it correct. They're not going to give you two answer choices that possibly could be correct, unless they give you three where they say which one is not correct, okay? So they're not going to try to trick you and pick, you know, oh, well, this one could be correct, but this one could be too. They're not going to put similar answers that could both be correct, okay? They're going to only give you one that will work to fix something. But understand that in your mind, as you're reading the sentence, you could have corrected it a different way, just like this one we just looked at. She likes to dance and to sing songs. I could also put she likes dancing and singing songs. There's other possible ways, but ACT will only give you one option that is correct. Okay, so that's why a lot of times you may hear things about, they'll say in English, you're choosing the best answer. Well, it's the best answer of all the answer choices they've given you. It's not the best answer, meaning that this is the end-all, be-all, best answer you could possibly come up with. It just means which one is the best of the possible ones you've got, okay? Be consistent and use parallel structure with words ending in ing, like we've just looked at that. Joe likes running, walking, and outdoor activities. We want to make sure that running, walking, since they both have ings, we want to go ahead and have another ing that is going to describe those outdoor activities. So the way they corrected it was Joe likes running, walking, and being active. Another incorrect, we enjoy relaxing and like to sit out in the sun. Correct form would be we enjoy relaxing and sitting out in the sun. We want to have both those ings. Parallel structure should be used when writing clauses. Some examples of clauses using parallel structure. Incorrect. The teacher told them to study and that they should practice their words every night. Okay? So the correct way is the teacher told them that they need to study and that they should practice their words every night. All right? So the teacher told them that they, what is the part that we've got to put in here. So we have that they and that they. All right, we've got that parallelism right there. We don't want the teacher told them to study and that they should practice. We want to make sure if we've got that they in there once, it's in there twice, or leave it out. The teacher told them to study and to practice their words. Okay. Incorrect. My parents said to get a good education and not settle for less. Okay, on this one, we want it to say my parents said get a good education and do not settle for less. Okay, so thinking about, instead of using not, you want to have do not in there, since we're talking about two things that you're telling them to do. Some more examples of parallel structure include, we've got the incorrect. Mary wanted to make sure she made her presentation creatively, effectively, and persuaded others. So again, you can see I've got an ly and an ly, but no ly here. So to be able to correct it, Mary wanted to make sure that she made her presentation creatively, effectively, and persuasively. The next one, Tim was considered to be a good employee because he was always on time, he was very motivated, and led the team well. Okay, we've got he was, and then nothing with he was. So they corrected that with Tim was considered to be a good employee because he was always on time, he was very motivated, and he was a good leader. So I think a lot of these things, as you see it, it will start to become a little more obvious when you see it. Now that we've kind of talked through it, parallelism is something that we don't really talk about very much, but we do recognize it as we're reading, okay? And ask yourself, it may be something that you haven't really thought about, and you have to make a really conscious effort to look for parallel structure. So it'll be interesting to see as you look back at the mistakes that you made on your test previously, and then when you self-correct your next one, is parallel structure something that you're having trouble with? Is that something you need to review and kind of look at what you need to work on? Because you can see through all these things that we're talking about, there's a lot that goes into parallel structure. The next one is parallel structure on lists. When you have items on a list following a colon, the items should be all in the same form in order to avoid a parallel structure error. So if you notice the incorrect here, it says the following activities can be done at the mall: buying groceries, eating lunch, and bill payment. Okay, so I have ing, and no ing. Okay, so we want to change that to where buying groceries, eating lunch, and paying bills. The next one, incorrect. In your bedroom, you will find the following: a bed, a closet, and sitting at a desk. Okay, we've got singular bed, singular closet, and then we got sitting. Okay, so we want to drop that, we want to drop sitting and at all together. So you will find a bed, a closet, and a desk. You want to make sure that they're all singular nouns. Incorrect. Dogs are great pets for the following reasons: they are loyal, they are loving, and because of their obedience. Okay, those are not going to go. We want they are loyal, they are loving, and whoop, go back. They are loyal, they are loving, and they are obedient. We want to make sure we've got all those same things there. Incorrect. People who get ahead do lots of different things, such as studying, working hard, and attend college. Okay, so to change that, people who get ahead do lots of things such as studying, working, and going. Or you could say attending. Okay. Parallel structure and verb tense. We've talked a little bit about verbs. Here's some more. Your verb tenses should always match. She wrote a letter and mailed it to the school is the correct. The incorrect was she writes a letter and mailed. Writes is present tense. Mailed is past tense. So we've got to think more about our tenses, okay? Yesterday we watched a movie and played video games and made pizza. Those are all past tense verbs. Watched, played, made. So you wouldn't say, yesterday we watched a movie, play video games, and made pizza. Play needs the ed on it, okay? So there's a lot of things that you're looking for when you're reading the sentences. You're looking at, you know, are your verbs parallel? There's a lot to really look at here. Now we're moving on to correlative conjunctions. And it says correlative conjunctions are sets of words that connect parallel parts of a sentence, nouns with nouns, modifiers with modifiers, and so forth. Okay, so here we have the chart set up where we use the correlative conjunctions and then some sentence examples. So it says using both and. Being left-handed is both a blessing and a curse. Either or. I would like to eat either pizza or lasagna. Neither nor. The restaurant menu had neither pizza nor lasagna as an option. Not and but. I see myself not as a follower, but as a leader. Not only and then but also. So in this one, it could be not only and but, or I could use not only and but also. The also could be left out. So Blake is not only athletic, but smart, or you could say Blake is not only athletic, but also smart. Either way. More and than. We usually pack more clothing than we need when we go on a trip. As and as. He is as tall as his dad. Also called a simile. Such and that. The trip to the beach was such fun that scarcely made, that's supposed to be it home. We had scarcely made it home when it started to storm. The boy ate and as many and as, the boy ate as many hot dogs as he could without getting sick. Ooh, that makes me nauseous. No sooner and than. No sooner had the house gone on the market than it sold. Rather and than. I would rather be cold than hot. Between and. It's hard to decide between Whataburger and Chick-fil-A. Some of these sentences I was coming up with on these were my real things last night. We were driving home and I was asking my daughter, okay, what do you want? Whataburger or Chick-fil-A? I was like, Whataburger sounds really good, but it's a whole lot more calories. So, all right. It was not until, and that. It was not until he saw his friends that Carter was glad to be back at school. So looking at these correlative conjunctions, we want to make sure that when we have these words that they are parallel. We don't say either and nor. It's neither nor, either or, okay? We don't say more that, we say more than. Or such than, we say such that. So just kind of knowing these words that kind of go together. And a lot of times reading through them, it kind of gets that repetition in your head, so they're a little bit easier to remember. All right, I've drawn a line here because we are done with parallelism right now. Moving on to pronouns and antecedents. What is a pronoun? A pronoun takes the place of a noun and sometimes refers to a noun. So example 1, he is riding a bike through the park. Reasoning, the word he is a pronoun because it takes the place of the person. It could be John, David, Stephen. We don't know who it is, but he is replacing it is a pronoun replacing the person. Example 2, the weather is great today. Let's make the most of it by going to the beach. Okay, it is a pronoun referring to the weather. Okay, so the weather is great. Let's make the most of it. So we're talking about, when we say it, we're referring back to the weather. Okay. What is an antecedent? An antecedent is a noun or pronoun to which another noun or pronoun refers. It usually goes before the pronoun, and the prefix ante means before. Okay. So it's usually going to come before the pronoun. So let's look at some examples of these. Example 1, even though the party was fun, it was crowded. It is describing party. All right. People often like parties because they get to see friends. They refers to people. Okay. What is pronoun antecedent agreement? Pronoun antecedent agreement is when the pronoun agrees in number, referring to singular or plural, and person referring to first, second, or third person within its antecedent. So what we're looking at is the pronoun we're using representing the number of people we're talking about. You wouldn't want to say people often like parties because he gets to see old friends. People, he is singular, people is plural, okay? You wouldn't say, even though the party was fun, she was crowded. Those don't match, okay? So you've got to look to make sure. I put a little tip on here. It says when you check your own sentences to determine if the pronouns agree with their antecedents in both number and person, look first for what the antecedent is. So first, find the antecedent, okay? So we want to first find the antecedent. Then match the antecedent with a pronoun that is consistent in number. So we want to make sure if the antecedent is singular, is the pronoun it's referring to singular. If the antecedent is plural, and that meaning, you know, what person, then make sure it's matching. Okay, so let's look at some examples here. Pronoun antecedent disagreement based on number. Okay, when an employee does not agree with their boss's decision, the employee should not support that decision. Notice employee is singular, there is plural. Okay, this sentence contains an antecedent and a pronoun. Since the antecedent employee is singular and the pronoun there is plural, they disagree. Okay, so you want to make sure that you can correct it in one of either ways. Either make the pronoun and antecedent singular or make them both plural. So it could say, when employees do not agree with their boss's decisions, the employees should not support that cause. Okay, or you could say they. The next one, we have some correction samples. When an employee does not agree with his boss's decision, the employee should not support that decision. When an employee does not agree with her boss's decision, the employee should not support the decision. But the main thing to know is that their, T-H-E-I-R, is not a singular pronoun. We use it as singular all the time. I'm going over to their house, okay? I'm going to her house. Now, if I said I'm going to their house, I'm talking about all of the members of the family, all right? That is plural. So we have to be careful when we're using their. Everyone should make their own decision, okay? Here, everyone is singular. There is plural. So we need to make sure that we either make them both singular or both plural, okay? Everyone should make his or her own decision would be a way of doing that, okay? But there is plural. So here's a chart that kind of gives you an idea of the words that are used together. I have my subject pronouns, and it shows you first person, second person, third person when you're talking about male or female, and then third person gender neutral. First person plural, second person plural, third person plural, and then any person plural, okay? So subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, and who. Notice they is singular. There is either used as a possessive or is plural. Object pronouns, me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them, whom, okay? So remember objects. Like if I said, if we had Katie and I are going to the movies, since it's in the subject, I'm using I. I am going to the movies with Katie, or she is going to the movies with Katie and me. It's an object pronoun now, so now I change it to me. I wouldn't say she is going to the movies with Katie and I, okay? I only use I when it's in the subject. Possessive adjectives, my, your, his, her, its, our, your, and their. We're going to talk a little bit more about its in a little while. Possessive pronouns, mine, yours, his, hers, ours, yours, theirs, and whose. And reflexive pronouns, myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. And so reflexive pronouns are used when the subject and object are the same. So the example is taking care of yourself is important when you are helping to take care of others. The subject of the sentence is you, who is taking care of yourself, okay? Because here, you are taking care of others and you are also taking care of yourself. So that's what it's talking about, a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive pronouns are also used in order to emphasize who has completed the actions, and some are called emphatic or intensive pronouns, since they do just that. Okay, so emphatic means emphasize. I prefer to clean the kitchen myself so I know it's clean. So I and myself, okay, referring to the same thing. It's the subject and the object are the same. Which versus whom? ACT will often test your knowledge on when to use who or whom. Who usually acts as the subject of a sentence, and whom usually functions as the direct object. Okay, so again, who is in the subject, whom is in the direct object. When acting as the subject, who or whoever refers to the person doing the action, whereas whom means they are the receiver of the action. To determine the subject, you ask yourself, who is doing the action? And to determine the direct object, you ask yourself what or whom is affected by the action. Okay, so here's a strategy for helping with that. It says to replace the word in the question with he, okay, and him for whom. So the example, if I've got who or whom threw the ball and broke the window, now we want to try with he and him. So I would say, he threw the ball and broke the window, or him threw the ball and broke the window. Notice that who I am replacing with he, whom I am replacing with him. Okay, so I'm plugging in the two different words to represent it, and so that way I can see that when I say he threw the ball and broke the window, that is correct. Saying him threw the ball and broke the window is not correct. So since I know he is correct, then my correct choice will be who. Okay, so that's a strategy that you can use to plug in a singular pronoun for who. Plug in a subject pronoun for who and an object pronoun for whom, and then you can see. All right, it says who and whoever typically come before an action verb or linking verbs. So they become before the verb. Who and whom typically come after prepositions such as to, for, from, of, or with. Exceptions, the phrase some of whom, most of whom, all of whom, and both of whom break the general rule that whom should not come directly before a verb. So the example here is, I know of a set of twins, both of whom do not like being compared to each other. So I know a set of twins, both of whom are in the subject part, do not like being compared to each other. So when we use some of whom, most of whom, all of whom, and both of whom, that's typically going to come in the subject part, not in the object part. So that's kind of our little rule breaker. And that's just the story of our English. We have lots of rule breakers. All right, whose and whose. Whose is a contraction for who is. Whose is a possessive form of who. When in doubt, plug in who is and see, are we talking about the contraction or are we talking about the possessive form? So if I said, whose book is this? And I tested it and said, who is book is this? That does not make sense. So I know that when I say whose book is this, I'm not talking about WHO''S, I'm using WHOSE, okay? And I guess it's in next week's stuff that I have its, and things like that. Okay, so we'll talk more about those things, just like whose and whose. We'll kind of talk about, you know, when you're plugging in its, and its, trying to determine which form to use. So anyway, I know it's a lot that we've covered today. I'm hoping that it won't be quite as, you know, blah when we get to be in the classroom next week. The good news is I'll be able to give y'all printouts and y'all won't have to print out your own stuff. I'll have copies for you on Wednesday in class. So next week we meet in class. What I would like you to do for next week, when you come to class, I would like you to have all of these printouts that you have, put them in a binder together. So you've kind of got a place where you're keeping these consistently, a binder, a folder, you know, wherever you want to put them, just put them in something where they're attached, whether it's like in the little the brads of a folder, like a pocket folder, that's fine. Or if you'd rather put it in a binder and make you a nice little neat ACT prep folder, that would be great. Let me tell you the things that I want you to be sure to have next week to give me. So write these things down. And if I need to resend, I'll show you which one I'm talking about just to make sure. ACT overview. I think it was on page 3. I think when I looked, I don't think anybody had actually uploaded this sheet. So if you would, if you'll have this sheet, and then I can just take I can just make a copy of it. So for ACT prep, I've already told you I want you to do a practice test, 5 sections, 9 minutes each, and to test your reading strategies. Okay? Then I want you to self-grade your test. Okay? So on Wednesday, I want you to write down on a piece of paper what your self-test score was. I want your raw score and your scaled score. Okay, so remember, raw score means so many out of 75. Okay? Scaled score means you've gone back to that little chart and you've looked and said, hey, I got 35 out of 75. What ACT score does that correlate with? Is everybody clear on that? If you have questions, be sure to let me know. And I can even help you pull it up. I mean, like next Wednesday, if you're not sure where to look, we'll look it up in class. Okay. So for your first self-test, I want your scores. For your second test that you're going to be doing this week, I want the same thing, raw score and scaled score. And I also want to know what your times were. Okay. So times and scores. Okay, so that was, and then I want page 3 from the first week of class, our overview papers, page 3 of overview, which is your self-goal setting. I think most of you already uploaded your mindset, so that should already be on the website. If you did not get that uploaded, make sure to bring it on Wednesday. That was the mindset activity that I emailed to you as well. What else? I think that's it. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. But next week when you come, I need you to bring your red book. I need you to bring your notebook that you're making with all these printouts, and we'll have more to add to it. This page 3, and then bring in your practice test, your raw score and scaled score, and then also bring in where you've gone through your corrections, so we can kind of look through those and talk through those and see if you have any questions. And that way, if you're having trouble making correlations, if you can say, hey, these are the things I missed, can you help me see if there's a pattern here? I'm more than happy to do that. And know that on Wednesday, if you need to hang around and ask any questions, this is my last class on Wednesdays. So, and I'm going to be hanging around doing work at the co-op. So if there's ever any time that you need to stick around and ask questions or do anything, feel free. If you need a quiet environment that you want to stay and do a practice test or something like that, let me know ahead of time so I can make sure that I don't have an appointment or something afterward I've got to leave for. But like if you want to stick around and have some quiet work time, I am totally fine, to do that. So, because I will be there doing some work stuff. So anyway, is everybody clear on what we need to have for next week? Claire Jane?
What kind of practice test are we doing? Like, what page is it on?
Okay, so like I said, I want you to just do another English practice test. Your red book has a total, I think, of 4 or 5, depending on which version you have, practice test. You can pick any of 2 through 5. We did one already. So in your book, do you have the 1920 book? On the front of it, does it say Prep Guide 1920? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so practice test 2 starts on page 333. Practice test 3 starts on 473. Practice test 4 is 621, and practice test 5 is 753. Pick any of those practice tests. Just do one, okay? Just do one for sure. Now, if you want to do more practice, you're welcome to do all of them. But I mean, just for class, I want you to have done one more so you can pick, is it practice test 2, 3, 4, or 5? Just pick one to do. Score it. Then you've got your scaled score sheets that you can look and see what your, what your score would be. And like I said, if you have any trouble finding that stuff, it'll be much easier. We'll kind of look at that stuff in class next week. I know it's kind of hard via Zoom to flip to a page in the book and me trying to point to it over a camera. So we'll kind of go through our books next week and kind of look at the different parts of it when we can actually flip and turn, and especially since some of us have a newer version or whatever. Okay. All righty. Week 3 is done. All right. So we will be back to see each other on Wednesday. So we'll be back in class on Wednesday, and then we'll be home the next week, and then we'll be back in class the next week, but we're just going to roll with it and see how it goes. So hopefully all will be well, and we'll get to, get back to class and be in class every week. So, all right. Well, thanks for y'all's attention and all your hard work. Know that I'm here to support you in any way. Like I said, I get that this is not exactly like top of your list of things you want to do. I get it, but unfortunately, it's a necessary evil if you are wanting to go to college. It's one of those things that you just gotta do. So anyway, but I think each of you are perfectly capable. I know that Victoria, obviously, I've never worked with you one-on-one before, but I know that each of you have qualities. We may not all be 100% in every single thing, but we all have strengths. We all have things, but we also all have weaknesses that we have to overcome. And that's human nature. That's the, that's the hard part of it. But y'all are all capable of doing that. And I'm excited for you guys, and I'm proud for the work that y'all are doing. And let me know if y'all need anything. Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a great week. Practice, practice, practice. And I will see y'all next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, Victoria.